All right, and welcome to a very exciting episode of the Mando Method Podcast. I'm your co-host, Armand Rosamilia.
And I'm the other co-host, Jay Wilburn.
Nice. Not Chuck Buddha. Chuck is a little sick tonight, and he's missing out on a great one. He was very upset today that he was not going to be part of this. We haven't done a roundtable with other authors in a while, and we haven't had such esteemed authors with us as well. So I'm very excited to kick off 2022 with you. So, ladies, quick introduction, and then we can jump into the fun.
Hank, go ahead.
Oh my golly. Tosca and I have been friends for so long. I'm Hank Phillippi Ryan, and I'm so pleased to be here with you tonight. What a wonderful time, and what a wonderful group of people we have. As I said, I'm Hank Phillippi Ryan. I am in Boston. I am the USA Today bestselling author of 13 thrillers. The newest is Her Perfect Life, which is so casually displayed.
I love it. That's so cool. I love it.
It reminds me that things can work. Got starred reviews from Kirkus and starred reviews from Publishers Weekly, which called it a superlative thriller. I'm also the investigative reporter for Channel 7 television in Boston, where I've been for 43 years and have won 37 Emmys for investigative reporting. My books have won 5 Agathas, 4 Anthonys, the McCavity, and the Mary Higgins Clark Award. So this is my second career. I didn't start writing till I was 55. So I am having a marvelous time with this. And this is how I met Tosca. I didn't know you before I started writing. So Tosca, tell us about you too.
Yes, well, as Hank said, we've been friends for years, and this is proof that I have the coolest friends. So 37 Emmys. So my name's Tosca Lee, and I'm in Nebraska. But I'm very familiar with Boston because my sister lives there. And I am married to a farmer. I've been writing since I was young, but really have been doing this full-time for the last decade. I have 11 novels out. My last 2 books were The Line Between and A Single Light, which was a pandemic duology that came out in 2019. I've got several works that have been optioned for TV and film and have won some awards. And you know what? There isn't a day that I don't wake up and go, woohoo, because I get to do this for a living and wear sweatpants every day. So feeling very, very lucky and extremely blessed.
It is awesome having you both on. Before we get into the chatting and everything, I want to thank our sponsor. That's right, Reaper's Brew Coffee this week, reapersbrew.com. Check them out. I am drinking. They actually made this mug for me. This is my MondoCon mug. I believe, Jay, you got one of these.
Yes.
And 2 flavors, Murder Mud, which is regular, and Electric Chair, which is the high caffeine. It's a horror-themed coffee company, veteran-owned. And if you go to reapersbrew.com and you use Mando at checkout, MANDO, you get 10% off of new orders, plus you receive a free gift. So check them out. Once again, want to thank you, reapersbrew.com.
Can we go there right now? I cannot live without coffee. It is,
yes.
And that's the perfect coffee for thriller and mystery writers too.
Exactly.
So.
It's like the perfect advertiser for this show. I drink a ton of it. In fact, I'm going on another podcast on Wednesday, and I said, you know what? I'm going to bring a couple of bags down with me because it's a live one here in Florida. And he was very excited. He's like, I hear them about them all the time on your show. I said, oh, I'll bring you a couple bags. So.
Are you cold brew people as well?
I am anything with coffee people. Yes, I'm a huge Dunkin' Donuts fan. I wrote a book about going to Dunkin' Donuts for a month, a nonfiction book, and I anything new that comes out except pumpkin I'm not a fan of, and anything peppermint I'm not a fan of. But literally anything else that they come out with, especially if it has chocolate in it, I will definitely drink it.
I'm a television reporter in Boston. You know, I can't live without Dunkin's.
Well, you have one on every corner, which is great.
Isn't that crazy? But then when someone asks for directions and you say turn left at the Dunkin's, that could be anywhere.
Right. If you miss that Dunkin', the next block and the next block. I grew up in New Jersey originally. I've been down here for 20 years, but there weren't as many Dunkin's. But going back every year, there's more and more. Like my hometown is this tiny little fishing village, and they have 2 Dunkins where we never had. We had one in like the county when I was growing up, and now there's like 2 in every place, which I absolutely love.
Is there a big coffee shop in Nebraska, Tosca?
There's a few different ones here. We've got some cool local companies. There's one called Clout Coffee, and they put their beans in, they age them in like bourbon barrels and like rum barrels, and then they bottle them up, and they're really cool. But I was really excited when we got our Dunkin'. I don't know if it disappeared for a while and then it came back, but I like Dunkin' for its donuts. Yeah. So I'm not a Krispy Kreme girl. Oops, sorry, Krispy Kreme, but I love a good Dunkin' donut, like actual, whenever I go to Boston and we go buy a Dunkin' donut, I'm like, chocolate donut right now, every single time. Yeah. So, got to have one in Boston.
I'm a big fan of Cloud Coffee. They're that's delicious. In fact, she wrote a book. She has a book out about her experiences growing up. And she had
she did just have a book come out. Yeah, that's
right. Pretty hard life. I bought that. I got a free sample of the coffee and I loved it. And I went and bought a couple of bags. And then I also bought her book because as writers you gotta do that. And really good book. I think definitely check it out.
Wow, awesome. So Clout Coffee. She's also the editor of Omaha Edge magazine as well.
Right. So. Yeah. She talks about that. She talks about how. Some really cool stuff in that book. It's a really interesting journey that she took so far.
Oh, awesome.
All right, so we could talk coffee for 45 minutes.
We could. Hank, I need to send you some Clout Coffee, so I'm going to have to get your address.
Definitely. And Reaper's Brew too sounds great. And you said it was a veteran-owned organization.
Veteran-owned company. Yep. Chris Adler. He's also down here in Florida. I've never met him in person, but we have a lot of the same likes. He's about my age, and I love his coffee. His coffee is absolutely delicious. And again, go on the website and use the coupon code, and you get 10% off of your order.
He's a really good guy.
Yeah. All right, so let's actually talk writing. Let's talk some books. Let's talk. This is a fascinating thing for me. I'm just going to throw it out there, and Jay's going to laugh at me. The thought of being a New York Times bestseller, what does that mean to both of you?
You see, we're just thinking,
It's something that, we talk a lot about. There's a lot of New York Times bestsellers. When I first found out that I had hit the list, I was on an airplane about to take off, and the daughter of the guy I was dating at that time texted me, and she said, I just saw this, and she sent me a picture of it, a screenshot of it. And then the plane took off, and I had to turn my phone off and everything. And so I'm sitting there, and I turned to the lady next to me when the beverage cart came down the aisle, and I said, I just hit the New York Times bestsellers list. I'm going to buy a glass of wine. Would you like one? And that was, but I think that, those things are cool, and they can be very meaningful. But I think at the end of the day, it's just you and the story, loving what you do, enjoying your story and your characters, and enjoying entertaining your readers. And I think for as much as we talk about, awards, and as much as we talk about bestseller lists and stuff, I think, Hank could probably attest to this too, that, the greatest thing is knowing that you've entertained well, and that you've, come alongside somebody who either just wanted a good entertaining read for a while, or someone who was going through a difficult time, or a divorce, or taking care of aging parents, or, whatever it was, and you've become a part of their life. And, that's really the coolest part of what we do.
I so agree. And I bet you didn't need the airplane for the rest of the flight. You were just floating on the New York Times list. I can just
imagine. Or the wine.
Well, I can imagine how happy you were. It's interesting because it does sort of bring up the two tracks of writing. And one is, as Tosca's saying, the so important, that personal idea that we're sitting here at our desks writing the very best book that we possibly can. And, you know, in the back of our minds is, I wonder if people will like this. And we're trying to challenge ourselves and make a better story and create something new and unique and fascinating and riveting and page turning that as many people as possible will love, because we love it. And then at some moment on some day, it's the publication day and your book is out there in the world. And the judgment of your book is one of those things that you have to sort of learn to be patient with and to be open to, and to know that at some point something is out of your control. So when you make the Times list or the USA Today list, or win an award, it's thrilling. It's wonderful. It means that some segment of some people decided that indeed your book was good. And that's great, because it's brilliantly wonderful. I was talking to an author yesterday, two authors yesterday, one of them who had been on the New York Times list for 22 weeks in a row.
Wow.
And the other, which is pretty amazing, and the other who had sold millions of books, but had never hit the Times list. And he was saying something like, I would trade my dog to be on the New York Times list for 22 weeks in a row. And I'm like, you would not. And he said, well,
No,
my wife would be mad, you know, but
the cat maybe, but not the dog.
So, but the writer's mind is such a fascinating thing, because what does good mean? How do you judge what a good book is? And good is different for each person. And when I just sent my new book to my editor, for instance, and someone said, is it good? And I said, it's either the best thing I've ever written or terrible. And I won't know until the editor looks at it.
Right.
And I can hold those completely opposite ideas in my head, equally possibly true, sort of the Schrodinger's cat of books. I can hold those two opposite ideas in my head at the same time. And that's why writers are all nuts. That's why.
Now, when you
It's
reach like a threshold or a milestone like that, and I'm getting from you kind of, it's one of those things it's good to have, but it's almost like a passing thing, like you still have to move on. Do you feel like you reach a level that you're able to build up from there, or does it feel more like you're having to start over all the time and build all the way back up to that height?
Let me quickly say that one of the things that I think is so important, and I know Tosca does this because what she said was proof. Everything like that, every victory is a victory. It's completely a victory. And I try to celebrate it as much as I possibly can. You know, there are days that are so hard and that you just think, I think I'm giving up. I can't do this. I don't know how I wrote a book in the past. I'll never be able to do it again. I'll never have another good idea. So that when something good happens, we are obliged, don't you think, Tosca, to celebrate and say thank you and embrace it?
Yes, absolutely. I'm really big on celebrating, because I think I speak for most writers when I say we all deal with imposter syndrome. We all deal with insecurity on a daily, kind of moment to moment situation. And I feel like there's always that range between, delusions of grandeur and absolute paranoia. And it's like that all day long. Yeah. And so I think when you get something that's validating, it is validating, whether it's an award or a bestseller list, whatever it is, it's a moment of, okay, I'm not completely an imposter. At least they don't know that I am right now, or something like that, but then you do kind of feel like you have to, it's like Sisyphus with a stone, right? It's like you feel like you have to start rolling that back up the mountain, and every single time you feel like at least I do, I feel like I'm starting over. So whenever I sit down, it's kind of like what Hank said, I know I did this before, but I'm not quite sure how I did that. And maybe I don't remember how to do that, or maybe I had mojo once and it's gone, but like it's left me. Or so.
I just wrote a whole article about this, in fact, for Career Authors, which is a blog that I'm part of, and it turned out to be the 26 stages of writing. Number one stage being I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'll never have a good idea. And number two being the searching for the possibilities and the discarding. You know, I'm taking out the trash. Maybe taking out the trash is a good idea. I got a letter delivered to the wrong address. Ooh, what if somebody got a letter delivered to the wrong address? You know, every single possible thing in your life becomes a possibility, and then it fails. And then I think number 3 is the sort of having of the idea, you know, and there it is. And no matter how you poke it and prod it and twist it and deconstruct it, it still holds up. And you think, oh my golly, you know, this is going to work. And that's a moment to celebrate too, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I think so. Anytime you realize that this is kind of working is a good moment, because there are other moments where you're like, this is not working, or I pulled one thread out and then the whole thing unraveled.
Yeah. So
then you have to go patch up everything, and there are those moments too. But yeah, I think 26 stages of writing sounds about right.
Well, go look for it on careerauthors.com. See what number you are at the.
I need to do that. I need to do that.
Is there pressure, whether from a publisher or mostly from yourselves, to once you hit those lists, once you start winning those awards, once you get to that level, that you sit down with that next idea for that next book and you go, this has to be a New York Times bestseller again, or I need to win another award here?
I kind of think that when I sit down with my fantastic editor or fantastic agent to discuss the new book, my goal is to have it be better than the last book, whatever better means. I mean, I think it's so important to remember there are so many things that we can't control. We just can't control the lists, and we can't control the awards. We can't control how many people buy our book, or whether it does well, or whether it comes out on the same day as Stephen King's book and then you're doomed. I mean, think of all the combinations of possibilities of landmines that there are in the writer's life. And all we talk about, I mean, if I win an award, my editor says, that's great. You know, then she goes on. So she's happy, but it's not life-changing at that moment. So we are going for quality. We are going for a book that is just so good that you cannot put it down, that it's page-turning, it's compelling, it's unique, it's original. You know, it's a good story, just like we look for in TV. So I think that's our goal. Tosca, do you agree?
I totally agree. I mean, I always want my next book to be better than the last one, which is very subjective, because, you know, I've written about Eve as an Adam and Eve, and then I've written thrillers, and I've written historical. So it's kind of apples and oranges. So how do you do better? But you do have that feeling that you want it to be better. And, you know, the thing for me is, it's easy, I think, to get down, or for me it is, or easy to, you know, the pressure comes from myself. And so it's easy to kind of feel this like, you know, I gotta write this great thing, or it's gotta be better than the last one, or whatever. And, you know, I think the constant challenge is to get in there and just have that joy and remember that joy. And for me, the biggest challenge of all is to always pretend like no one will ever read it. Yeah. And I'm just writing something super fun, because if I can have fun, then it's gonna be okay. So I know my reader will have fun too.
I've learned over the years to embrace the panic. This is my motto, embrace the panic. And I'll tell you why, because I think it's about number 15 on the list of the writer's journey, is you're going to feel at some moment, I always do, oh my golly, this is not going to work. I really thought this was going to work, but it's not. It's clearly not. I'm an idiot. I'm doomed. This is a failure. There is nothing I can possibly do to fix this. And I realize that what happens every time I think that is soon after comes the idea, like, oh, I know how to make this work. Oh, it was all there in the first place. I just wasn't looking at it in the right way. Hooray, I've solved this, another problem successfully solved, and onward. So now when I feel that panic, I think, oh, great, this is the panic stage, because next is going to be the stage of fixing. And so I welcome it, bring on that terror, because the solution is on the way. That's what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm a reader of both of you, so I'm familiar with both your work, and in that progress you guys make to make your work better, I've also kind of seen some evolutions in subjects. For example, Hank, you did the Charlotte. I'm going from memory here, so forgive me. The Charlotte McNally series over the course of about 3 or 4 years, leading up to like 2009, 2010, and then you had the Jane and Jack thrillers that ran about the same amount of time, where you had a few more books in that one, and then you've kind of been doing over the last few years some standalones, and then Tosca, looking at you, like the first book I read of yours was Iscariot, and you were doing a number of like books inspired by biblical themes at that point. And that was about the time I went full time as an author. So I'm thinking around 2013 is when that was. Then more recently, like I've read The Line Between, which came out a couple years ago, and then like real close after that, A Single Light has come in, and that's in my to be read pile now. And your voice was still in there, but you'd made a shift in terms of some of the choice of style and things, all thriller and that kind of thing. So I guess the question to both of you then is looking over that evolution with that decision to try to get better. How does that kind of go concurrently with the decision to to start new series or to change subject matters or that sort of thing?
Well, for me, it goes by feel, because there came a point where I just could not do another historical biblical right at that time, because the research is so intense, and also you're writing under such scrutiny because you're writing about biblical characters, biblical stories, and it's highly scrutinized in a way that's different than when you're writing current event, like current storylines, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it was I need to do something to shake this up a little bit, because I didn't want to keep writing in the same genre. I don't like to eat hamburgers every day. I don't want to eat sushi every day either. Sometimes I just want some chicken, right? So, or whatever. So for me, it was just, I'd really like to go try this now. My most recent book that'll come out spring of next year is now a World War II story, which is very different. It's a kind of a departure for me again. But once again, it was time for pasta. So,
I love that. I'm going to steal. I just want some chicken.
I just want some chicken.
That's one of the greatest lines ever. I'm going to use that on my editor. Thank you, Tosca. I will give you full credit for that. Jay, I loved hearing that list of, you have done your research.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's research. I just read books. I just picked up books I liked and read them.
Tears to my eyes. Thank you.
Jay knew years later, after reading both of your books, I was going to have him on this podcast with me to talk to you. So it's future research for him.
I love that's great. Well, thank you. I'm very honored and flattered about that. It's interesting, and I'll tell this really, really quickly. I started writing the Charlotte McNally series, Primetime, FaceTime, Airtime, Ride Time, Drive Time, in the early 2000s. And they were lighter, fun, first person, sort of investigative, not cozy. They weren't cozy, but they were sort of investigative mysteries. I would call them, set in Boston, and they were sort of sophisticated humor and a little bit lighthearted and fun to write. I loved the Charlie McNally books. The first one won the Agatha for Best First Novel, and that was, shocking, the first book they ever wrote. But at some point after Drive Time, those 4 stories, I had an idea for another book. And I got the idea in the dentist's office when I was reading an old copy of People magazine. And someone said in this magazine, you can choose your sin, but you cannot choose your consequences. And I thought, oh, my book. There's a book. That's a book right there. You get goosebumps. And so I thought, this can't be a Charlotte McNally book. This is bigger. This is a thriller. This has got to be multiple points of view. You just know from that one line that it's got to be a different kind of book. So I made that into the Jane Ryland and Jake Brogan series, beginning with The Other Woman. And if you see the cover of The Other Woman, the hardcover cover, it says you can choose your sin, but you cannot choose your consequences on the cover. And that went through a series of 5 books. And there's another, I have a contract for another one, at least of that. But then again, I got an idea for what had to be a standalone, which is, how does a person who's writing a true crime nonfiction book know what the truth is. How would you do that? How did Truman Capote write In Cold Blood? Some of that has to be made up, and yet we think that's true. So I wrote a book called Trust Me, which is about how a true crime writer and how she knows what's true. And the mantra, sort of the cut line of that story is, there are three sides to every story: yours, mine, and the truth. And that started my standalone psychological fiction, standalone psychological suspense, I would say. And I love that genre. But again, you can see how those are different kinds of books that call for different kinds of writing. Like yours, Tosca, call for different kinds of writing. Historical fiction, I'm in awe, because that's super research.
There's a lot of research. There's research too in, the current storylines as well. It's just a different kind. And it's a relief to me sometimes to not have to research things like, I literally spent a whole day researching first century public latrines. Like that was a whole day of my life that I lost to that. But, being able to.
Now you know.
Yeah, but now I know.
Yeah.
But, or what people ate, so it's very slow going at times. And also, you have to kind of tiptoe with the biblical themes, because there's a lot of scrutiny on those stories. And so I've really, really loved being in this current timeline with my most recent stories. It's just been a ball. So
I know, it's so funny, readers' reactions. My book, Her Perfect Life, that's out right now, like so many of my books, are about a television reporter, since I'm a television reporter, and talking about research, Tosca. So I got a review of one of the books that said, obviously this author knows nothing about being a television reporter. I've been a television reporter for 43 years. And I mean, I know about it. So, no matter what you do and no matter how there's going to be somebody, back to our original question, there's going to be somebody who criticizes you for it. And you just.
There's always going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you both still read your reviews? Do you have a thick skin on those now? Do you ignore them? I mean, how do you deal with them? I totally, for years now, I have ignored reviews. For me, the review is for other readers. That's in my mind, at least, that's what saves me from reading reviews.
If I'm in writing mode, I really try not to read reviews. I'm too fragile at that point. If I've had something come out and I'm working on something, a lot of times I'll have my husband go in and read them. He can vet them, or just kind of give me the good ones. But I do like to read them eventually. So eventually I'll probably read them, but probably not while I'm doing a first draft.
That's a good idea.
Not a good time.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Mando, you're so self-actualized that you don't read your reviews, that you don't read the reviews. And I think that's very wise to talk about reviews being for other readers. That said, I am the most neurotic and most needy person in the world. And there is not a chance on the planet that I'm not going to read those reviews. And I'll tell you, it's kind of interesting, because initially when I started writing, however many years ago that was, I was just cut to the bone by a bad review. I mean, I would be miserable. And I want to tell you this, I'm not exaggerating, for days, because somebody said my book would fill in the blank. I knock on wood, kind of got over that, because I think that a book that someone really superly doesn't like means they reacted to it in some way.
Right.
Something to them. And every book is not for everyone. My husband and I read the same book from time to time, and I'll love it or hate it, and he'll love it or hate it. And it's just a different book. I do think sometimes the problem is that you don't know which times. Sometimes there are things that you can take from a series of reviews, all of which may say the same kind of thing, that you might think, that I do think, all right, I'm here. I hear you. I hear all of you. But I remember my favorite bad review that I've ever gotten, which I love, is that I wrote a short story. and it won the Agatha, the Anthony, and the McCavity Award. So it is a demonstrably well-liked story. It's demonstrably good, called On the House. So I was having the aforementioned really terrible writing day where I was thinking, I stink. Why did I do this? This is terrible. And so I thought, I'll make myself feel better by going to look at the reviews of On the House, because clearly that's a good story. And then I'll be reassured by how good people think I am. This is insane. I just want you to know that I realize this. So I go to the reviews of On the House, and there's a 1 star. One of them is 1 star. And I'm like, oh no, sister, there's no 1 star about this book, about this story. There's no 1 star about this story. This is a good short story. It's demonstrably good short story. I can't wait to see why you gave this short story a 1 star. And the 1 star review said, not a book. No, it isn't. It's a short story. It is a short story. It is not a book. And I burst out laughing every time I think about that, because that's what a review can be as well. Just some misunderstanding, some crazy thing,
right.
Something that they didn't expect. And yet I get the 1 star, no matter what, no matter what they say. So I try to be sort of amused by it all. I'm engaged, I'm interested, but I try not to be so affected any longer. And sometimes I succeed.
One of my biggest beefs with Armand is he wrote a book called Toolshed. And one of the first reviews that came up was a 1 star review. And the review said, the instructions weren't good. Some of the pieces were missing. So they were reviewing an actual tool shed. And he called Amazon and got them to take the 1 star review off. And I said, that is the biggest mistake of your career. Yeah. If you'd left that review in, people would be buying that book left and right, because that would be just the funniest thing they ever saw, was the fact that someone was reviewing it as a tool shed.
Biggest regrets and we've talked about, is not leaving that, or at least copying it. And having that in front of me. I mean, even the Amazon guy was laughing. He's like, this person bought a tool shed, an actual tool shed from Sears, and he's giving it a bad review because it wouldn't put together well. And he's like, I have no idea why he honed in on your book called Tool Shed and did this. But I really wish I had kept a copy of that one. That was probably one of my favorite.
Well, it might have been a good idea to leave it, but on the other hand, it might not have been a good idea to leave it. In your scenario, you should have left it, but possibly not. So I think you should let that go. I think just
you
should have left it.
Jay's never gonna let me forget.
I'm gonna die on that hill.
Lee Child talks about his favorite bad review was Lee Child. Okay, Lee Child. He got a bad review that said, "Your book is so bad, I wish I could unread it."
Wow.
So that's Lee Child. So you got to just let it all go.
I'm still of the opinion that 1 star reviews sell more books than 5 star reviews, because, like you said, you go in and you see all these reviews, and the one you clicked on was your 1 star. And then if you can get that 1 star to say something like too violent or too much sex or anything like that, those books are going to fly. And it's better than like the most well written out 5 star review you'd ever get.
I hated this book because I couldn't put it down and I missed work for
it. Right. I don't like the reviews that say, "Oh, the font was wrong on my Kindle."
Yeah.
I mean, like you never respond, but I'm yelling at the computer. I'm responding here, or I'm yelling for my wife, "Get in here! Look at this idiot!" Kind of thing.
That's why he doesn't read reviews anymore.
Yeah. Those reviews drive me nuts. Right, that's why I can't. Jay and I have known each other for many years, and he knows how ridiculous I am with a lot of stuff, and that is definitely one of them. So I don't really do reviews anymore. There might be some really nice ones out there. I would hope people have reviewed my books and said nice things about me, but.
Tosca and I will check it out and let you know.
Don't let him know. Don't let him know.
Have Tosca's husband vet it. I only want to hear the good ones. Yeah, I only want to hear the good. Somebody once said, "Well, I mean, even Moby Dick has bad reviews. Read those." And I'm like, "Well, I don't want to read Moby Dick reviews. I want people to leave me alone."
Here's a quote.
You know,
for you.
a million years ago, well, okay, not a million, but years ago, I worked for the Gallup organization. And they're best known for their polls, of course, but one other thing that they do is they teach employee engagement. And so they have this series of questions they use to gauge employee engagement. And the way that they came up with the questions was if the questions were not polarizing, where you get a clear split, then it was not considered a good question. Oh. And I kind of feel that way a little bit with reviews because, if they're all just 5-star reviews, then A, it looks a little fishy, B, it's like, what's going on? But if you can get a conversation or like Jay said, even a little, controversy or something going on in there, maybe that's not a bad indicator of something good going on. So, I look at books by authors, that I've loved and look at the spread of 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. And they're across the board, like The Watchers by Dean Koontz, across the board. And that's easily one of, my favorite thrillers of all time. So, I feel like it's okay to get a smattering in there as long as it leans 5, right?
Yeah,
it
leans
it's
5.
Like,
right, yeah. Yeah. And now that we're deep into the woods about this, if you give a review and you say 4.5 stars rounded to 4. No, 4.5 stars rounds to 5.
To 5. That's right.
If you give it a 4.4, I'll let you round down. Right.
See, now I'm great with 5 and 1-star reviews. The ones I can't stand are 3, where it says like it was okay. Like that's the death of me. Like that's like, oh, someone might believe that. Like no one's gonna buy that book.
Yeah.
We have a friend. We have a mutual friend who's also an author who takes his reviews very seriously. So for like him, a 3 is a really good review, 4 is excellent, and 5 is like rare. And we hate it when he reviews our books. Because, for him, 3 is good. And he's like, don't you want me to have integrity? I'm like, no, I want you to leave me alone and never read one of my books again. I've gotten 4s and 5s from him before, but it's like, there's always going to be that 3 because he just liked the book a lot, And
I'm always like, stop giving me 3s. You're knocking me down under like 4 point whatever. And now I can't run ads on this book until more people run ads. Even though you say you like the book, it's not helping my career. Leave me alone.
Stop being so honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no time for your integrity.
This is stuff that people will never hear any place else but here. No. Any place else but here. Somehow you all got us to talk about this. I'm not sure how.
What is your guys' process when you're starting a new book? So like the awards have been won, the reviews have either been read or not read, and now you've got the idea. And of course, you got your 26 steps that I need to read to get into that. But you're actually sitting down to start draft 1. Like, what is your either getting into that mindset, or what's your rituals, or what's your process for getting line 1, paragraph 1, page 1, chapter 1 going?
Well, for me, procrastination is an actual part of my process. I mean, it is literally built in, and I've tried to change, but I have been this way since high school. I wrote my 10-page papers the night before they were due. And so, I kind of have to feel a little panic. And once the panic sets in, I will start kicking it into gear. And maybe I just need the pressure of the panic or the deadline or something. But without that, I can find 50,000 other things to fill up my day and time. And even when I sit down, I find that there's about a 20-minute mark where if I squirm around in my chair long enough, about 20 minutes in, I'll finally kick in. But until then, I'll do my cuticles, or I'll stare out the window, or, I have a really hard time locking in. But I've just always been that way. But once I lock in, then it's time to go. And the thing that helps me lock in really well is, especially if I have some kind of an outline, and Hank and I have had this discussion before, because some people outline more than others, some people don't outline. I personally have to have, it doesn't have to be ironclad, but I've got to have some bones, so I know where I'm going. Otherwise, I'm in deep trouble. So that's my process. Hank, what is yours? I know that you have a different process.
Well, I do have a totally different process. process, but I'm laughing at Jay because I'm thinking about my 26 steps of writing the book. And I think and typing chapter 1 is one of the 26 steps. And I think it may be number 7. So that should tell you.
It helps. It really makes a difference.
Yeah. Because the process includes thinking of an idea. And so that's a couple of steps until you get the idea. And then you sort of noodle with the idea and your brain sort of thinks about it for a while. And honestly, my process of really writing the book on actual pages in this actual computer doesn't start until I know what the first line is. And once I know the first line, I think, oh yeah, okay, I got this. And then I sit down and then I type the first line before I even type chapter 1, just to make sure that the words chapter 1, just to make sure it's really on there. And I kind of know what the book is sort of about, Her Perfect Life, 2 strong women facing off in a high stakes psychological cat and mouse game about a terrible childhood betrayal. But which woman is the cat and which woman is the mouse? Okay, we'll see where this goes. So I kind of have a first line and I have a main character and then I just go. And how I keep in the moment, and you called it something, Tosca. What did you say when it kicks in? What did you used a word like when you?
I squirm around like a kid, like a toddler in my chair. But they're about 20 minutes in, it finally kicks in. Like
yeah, but it kicks in. I love that. I think that's really wise. And how I get myself to do that is I set a timer for 34 minutes. 34 minutes. I don't know where that came from because 30 minutes is too short, but 45 minutes is too long. 34 minutes. And I say, okay, I'm not getting up until I write something. I'm not doing anything else for 34 minutes, not looking at email, not looking at Instagram, not alphabetizing my spices, not doing the laundry, nothing. I'm going to sit here. Once I did alphabetize my spices, I'm not kidding. I'm going to sit here and work on this. And there is a thing that happens. I agree with you, Tosca. There's a thing that happens where your brain will finally focus.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a real physical, mental task to get that focus.
Yeah.
We could do this all day, but we're gonna. So, Jay, do you have any last question?
All right. Okay, as you're going through the idea process, and both of you are, past the dozen book mark and all that, is there a point where you feel pressure not to repeat yourself in some way? Like either, obviously, when you've selected a genre, there's certain things baked in, but as you're looking at your own style and the idea of making the next one better, what kind of pressure do you feel to not repeat certain beats or certain character traits or just things like that may have been a pattern in your past work?
That's a really interesting question. I don't know that I've ever been asked that question. I do think there's a little bit where it's like, I've written, for instance, Winter Roth is my most recent strong female character from The Line Between. And then before that, I had Audra Ellison. And so there is kind of this idea of they need to both be strong, but in different ways. And I want to create unique characters. But I've actually done the opposite. Every now and then I like to put little things in books, but one time I had a line about a guy staring at somebody who was speaking as though lobsters had crawled out of their ears. And I just thought it was such a funny image. I decided to use it in another one of my books later on because, and the first time I used it, I think was in Demon, the memoir, which takes place in Boston. And, I think the most recent time might've been in A Single Light or The Line Between. I can't remember, but so every now and then I'm like, this one still works. Why not use it again? So,
of course, lobsters in Boston, that's so perfect. So it's setting as well as metaphor. So just completely on the money. I think I hope I don't regret saying this, but I don't think about not repeating myself because each character is new. And for each character, I say, what does this person want? And how far will they go to get it? And when you're on that path of an individual character, it just isn't the same. It can't be the same. They're in a different world with different other people and with different motivations and different conflicts and different obstacles, and their personality is different, and what they decide is different along the way. And because I don't use an outline, unlike Tosca, I have no idea what's going to happen next in my story, not till the next sentence or the next paragraph or the next scene, let alone the ending. No idea. And so each journey is inevitably different, and the words are inevitably different because each story is so different. And my books are psychological. The weapons are, manipulation and gaslighting and deception instead of a gun. So our brains, our minds are so powerfully, potentially destructive. So far, I have not worried about repeating something.
I want to thank both of you for coming on. This has been amazing. We will hopefully talk again in the future. Maybe run into one another at a convention or book signing or something somewhere down the line. That would also be a lot of fun.
Imagine being someplace all together in person. It will happen. I know it will.
That would be that would be amazing. Also want to thank Reaper's Brew Coffee, reapersbrew.com. Check them out. 2 flavors. Murder Mud, which is the regular. The high octane is electric chair. I drink them constantly every day, maybe too much. And if you go to reapersbrew.com and use Mando, Mando, at checkout, 10% off of new orders, plus receive a free gift. Jay, thank you for sitting in for Chuck this week.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
If we get any bad reviews for you sitting in,
I'll absorb it all.
You absorb it. Do not.
I'm very self-actualized.
Do not tell me. Or if we get bad reviews, vet it through her husband.
Right, Tosca's husband.
That's right.
Who can tell me how great this episode was that you were on. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night, and like I said, hopefully we will be able to do this again.
Thank you so very much.
We had so much fun.